Okay, everybody here?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome. Welcome to the playback, whoever's watching the playback. You guys asked me to cover a little bit about team building, and I can give you experiences of that because um, that's more relevant than the theory. Reading a book, there's all kinds of things that people write about with respect to team building, but it comes really down to fundamentals. Um, if you think about a team uh, in the sports arena, in the sports context, for that matter, anything, but usually sports is a good one. Teams come together to play a game. The game is understood, the rules of the game is understood. And of course, the goal of coming together and playing the game is to win the game. And if you have a championship team, not all teams are championship teams. Most of the teams in the leagues are not, but you know the ones that are contenders. And they predict who's going to be, for instance, in the Stanley Cup finals a year in advance or 2 years in advance. Why? Because they can see the players on the team and they get a sense of how the team is operating as a team. So what's the goal of the team? To win. And if they're a championship team, it's to win a championship. So there's an end in mind. They have a common objective, a common purpose, a common vision, a common ideal. And then each player plays its part, plays their part to the best of their ability, but not as a one man or one person show. It's a collaborative event. It's a collaborative experience. And so if you look at championship teams in any category, they give us the best example of what it means to be on a great team. And therefore, what is it that we need to do to build a great team? So it starts with having a vision for the game. What is the game that we're going to play? And then what is the talents required in order to be victorious in the game? So let's talk about the game for a second. What is the game? I was on a call with Elena earlier today, and I made a point because I think there's a bit of a diametric or things not getting brought together in sync. The left and the right brain, the male and the female energies. It's great to get together. It's great to have conversation, share ideas and enthusiasm and so forth. But at the end of the day, if that doesn't actually go toward the achievement of something outside of the circle, then it's kind of it's kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-serving. It's self-serving. It doesn't serve a higher purpose, a greater purpose, unless there's something that's measurable, that as a result of the coming together, there's something that we can point to and say that coming together produced this result. So that's the male side, looking at something and saying, is this coming together fruitful? Does it produce something, or is it just for the sake of coming together? Because if we don't have the two, then it's like having one oar in the water in a rowboat. If you've got one oar in the water, it doesn't matter which one it is. If there's only one oar in the water, the boat goes around and around and around. It never goes anywhere. You got to have both oars in the water. And so the male female aspect of business is the think of the female aspects. It's the group, it's the collective, it's the nurturing, all of those. The male, it's the objective, it's the goal, it's the achievement. You've got to have both in order to be successful. And so the team has to have both in order for the team to be successful. For instance, if you're on a hockey team and the team loses every single game, at what point in time does the team become depressed? Players want to quit, not even show up for practice, and so forth. So, and there may be a superstar in that team, and they may even be one of the leaders in goal scoring, but the team loses. So the team experience is not very fun. For the individual who's playing on a losing team and they're a champion, they don't feel great because they want to be on a winning team so they can really showcase their talent. So the idea here is Team involves, we're in it together, TEAM, together, everyone achieves more. So first and foremost, what's the game? I think the game that we're playing in NICAN, for instance, is the game of building a network. That's the game. We're building a network. What the network does is it consumes NICAN products, it shares NICAN products, it consumes the philosophy, shares the philosophy, it promotes and endorses the concept, the business model, and so forth. And there are people who are going to be this form of business, trust me, is far from over. A lot of people are going to be needing, and already are needing, an alternate source of income, a way to dig their teeth into something, especially when they have nothing. And so this is a business that they can bring from the ground up without having all the capital requirements that most businesses require. If you compare just any business, forget NICAN or network marketing in general, just look at what does it take to start up a small cleaning business, where you clean people's houses, or you clean offices or whatever. What does it take to start a small franchise where maybe it is a cleaning service? When you start looking at businesses at large, and a lot of people graduating right now, they're all starting up their own businesses. But those businesses are an idea that, if they don't have a strong business plan, are going to fall flat on their face, like 85% of all businesses do in their first 2 years. And of the 15% of the businesses that survive the first 2 years, 85% will die in the next 2 years. So the statistics are not great for starting your own business, but we're not asking for them to be that. We're asking for the benefits, the fruits of the experience of having our own business, and definitely if it's a successful one. So we want people who join this game to have successful businesses, which means we have to bring in the business conversation besides just the element of being together and meeting together. So there has to be that balance. So the game of building a network is having a common attraction. Why do people get attracted to, I don't know, bowling? Why do people join bowling teams and go bowling every Thursday night? Or, go to sporting games or whatever? Why are people attracted to things where there's more than one of them at a time in attendance? Some it's for entertainment, some it's for motivation, some it's for inspiration. What's the reason why we're getting together in NICAN? What does it look like if we are really successful? What does a successful NICAN network look like? What's involved? What's it doing? And so that's the vision. That's what you hold out in front and you say, that's what we're building. And then you start building the pieces of that from the ground up. My first meeting was 3 people. Actually, my first meeting was 2 people. The second meeting was 3 people. And then the third meeting was probably just as much, and it kept going. And then finally, by the time we went into the hotels, by the 3rd, 4th week, I can't remember what it was, 22nd of the month, January, so it had been 5 weeks in, we had 235 people show up at a meeting. That's because everybody had both oars in the water and were doing this at the same time. They weren't just talking about the product, and they weren't just talking about the business. It was the combination of being a part of something important, something big. And so they were presenting an idea that people could at least be interested enough to come and check out. And that's all we can ask of the team to do. What does the team do? On a daily basis, the team asks people to come and check out the possibility. And if that's not happening as a rule of thumb on a daily basis, then you've got players that are sidelined. So there has to be some standards by which this team operates. Otherwise, you're not really working toward anything. So, and those things are not things that we can actually enforce because this is a volunteer army. It's just things that we can put out and encourage and recognize when people actually do it. So the game is to build a network. A network comes together for the purposes of achieving something, experiencing something. Most people join a network marketing business, first of all, for their own reasons. Maybe it's to make money. Probably it's to make money. Maybe it's because they want to buy the product at a discount. I hope that goes away sooner than later, but they join for their own reasons. They don't join for your reasons. They may nod their head to your reasons because you're giving them a compelling argument, but at the end of the day, they join for their reasons, not yours. And then comes the enrollment process. So just people joining your network doesn't mean they're joining your team. And so don't make that assumption. So what is this team? What does it stand for? What is it hoping to achieve? By when? So that as you put it out there, you start to attract people who want to be part of that. So there's joining Niken, which anybody can do for $20, or just simply register as a consumer. They don't even have to buy anything to do that. And then there's joining your team. And joining your team then is really about coming into a winning situation. So one of the reasons why we have goals and ranks, and we have these ranks, they're usually referred to as precious metals or precious gems, because we think of a diamond as something precious. But when you actually think of a diamond, the physical thing, what is it? It's carbon. But carbon that has been put under extreme heat and extreme physical pressure, which converts the carbon to diamond. And then, of course, with the experience of a master stone cutter, diamond cutter, they can cut that diamond in such a way where they're shaving off most of the stone to reveal that element of the stone that is going to refract and reflect the most amount of light, making it brilliant. And which is what we're attracted to. We're attracted to the light. We're attracted to the clarity and the sharpness of the light that is reflected off of a diamond. So why is a diamond an important thing in our business? What is a diamond? What would they have had to have gone through and therefore represent for the masses in order for them to achieve the rank of diamond? Same thing, pressure, heat, the experience of evolving, getting through the mire, going through the learning curve, getting through the people quitting, getting through the team forming, collapsing until they finally get the team that they want, and it starts to really go, yeah, inner work. Well, yeah, but it's not just inner work, it's also the exterior work. For instance, we had Veronica join your call a few months ago, and she talked about, by the way, she's coming to Toronto this month. She talked about having to recognize that there were different people in the business. They were not all operating the business the same way. They didn't all have the same level of expectations. And it was hard on her at first, just like it may be for you, because you think, hey, they've joined, so they must see what we see. They must be as excited about the future as we are. And then you find out they were that was just a shadow of them. You don't really know, because they haven't figured this out yet. They haven't been fully enrolled yet into their own vision of this for themselves. So team is, first of all, getting clear about what it looks like to be successful in this business, and then looking at helping others see it for themselves, and then bringing those others into a community where it can be reflected to each other. You remind each other of the diamonds that you are and the diamond that you're building, just like what this book talks about, the assumption. There has to be an assumption. If a championship team ever expects to win a championship, there has to be an assumption that they're winning, that championship is theirs. Otherwise, they'll never put in the effort. They'll never work through the deficiencies to actually get the job done. They will not be able to go through the losses and realize that it's an opportunity to improve rather than to quit. Those are the things that happen if you don't have a clear and concise vision of where this thing is landing. And therefore, it's hard to attract people to something when there's nothing to focus on, to draw their attention to. So I often tell the leaders of a team, if your vision isn't big enough to include the biggest vision of everybody on your team, your vision's too small for that team. You have to have a huge vision in order to amass a huge following. And that vision has to be not about what you're going to get, but about what they're going to get. So if you're somebody who can hold the vision for what others are going to get, and then you reflect that, and then you create the circumstances around which the players have to play, they have to practice, the game has to be played to win. So we have to know the rules of the game, and you keep that out there, but it's always in exchange for what it is that they're going to receive. You're the one mirroring that for them, reflecting back to them. Then you will draw to yourself the people who will fulfill that vision. Otherwise, if you're just going with what they're thinking at the time, then it's like a boat with no rudder. It just keeps going in many different directions, but it's actually never going forward and doesn't get momentum. So as much as we want everybody to have the experience of free will when they join this business, we need to give them direction and an understanding of where they should be pointing their energies, applying their energies, and having both oars in the water. So get clear on what it is that this team is playing to win. And then start to look at what does it look like if it's winning? Because this is what we need to do. We need to do these things. And then how often do those things have to happen? So one of the things that has to happen is the team needs to meet. They have a meeting. Usually there's a coach involved, and there's a meeting, and they have a meeting, and then they go out on the ice and they play, or they go on the soccer field and they kick the ball, and somebody blows the whistle and whatever. They run drills and whatnot before the actual game. So there's some practice. That's training. There's training. RTM. So the recognition part is the mirroring, the reflecting. The training is the skills. There are some fundamental skills in this business, the first of which is communication. Another one is goal setting. I think that's a skill. I don't think that's something we're taught. I think it's a skill. How to actually achieve a goal. I think that's a skill. A goal achievement is actually a skill because it plays into discipline. So there's some skills that I think need to be acquired that need to be on the table constantly so that people joining the team have access to that repertoire of information. So that's the RT. And then the motivation part. What motivates you? I know my friend Dave Rolfe says if somebody doesn't want something, they're not going to be very motivated to get it. So you got to want something. Otherwise, there's no motivation. The motivation comes from the energy in the system. This is where I am. This is where I want to be. If there's no tension, there's no energy in the system. If there's no energy in the system, there's nothing that's going to pull me forward. So we have to create that as a matter of course. We actually have to create the tension. Now, there's two ways of tension happening in our lives. One is destructive. That's when energy is imposed. And we know what that feels like when people tell us what we have to do or demand that we do something that we don't want to do. That's energy being imposed on us. And that's not very comfortable at all. And then there's the positive energy. And that's when we impose on ourselves an objective. And we create the tension within ourselves. It's a self-imposed tension. Now we have an impetus. We have the energy to move forward. And the answer to how do I deal with the anxiety that creates? People say, I'm afraid to set a goal because what happens if I don't achieve it? I don't know. I don't know that many people who achieve their goal the first round. I know what they do is they set the goal and they start moving forward, and then things change. Then they reset the goal and they start moving forward, and then they reset the goal and they start moving forward. And eventually they actually hit the goal because they're moving in the right direction. They're moving toward it. So setting the goal, resetting the goal, setting the goal, resetting the goal, but always taking steps toward the goal is how you relieve the anxiety and the tension. So if you're making a decision Does this decision take me further away or further toward my objective? That's why I keep saying change your strategy, not your objective. Change your strategy, not your goal. Because then otherwise, I don't know which way to walk, which way to move. So having goals is a very, very important part of attracting into your business, into your network, because your vision, your energy, your consciousness is what's going to attract whatever's in alignment with that consciousness. So if you're not seeing yourself as an Ekin Royal Diamond, you're not going to be an Ekin Royal Diamond. You're not going to attract the people that attract you to the business. If you can see yourself with a huge network, if you can see yourself having made a huge contribution to Niken's 10 million, that's good, because that's better than not seeing yourself as anything. Then maybe conversely, that will result in the advancements in rank and achievement. But there needs to be some clear vision, or nothing gets drawn to us, because that's how the laws work. They're drawn to us according to the assumption we make, which is why I started my talk with this thing about assumption. The assumption is everything. Here's
How would
another
you
one.
recommend us creating like a structure or direction for new team members who are coming in?
I think it's important that they have a simple system for onboarding. And I know Niken's working on this. I've been helping with that. But it's important that there's a really simple, how do I get started? Because we know if they don't move their feet, nothing's going to happen. And you got to get them moving their feet, because until they move their feet, nothing's committed. It's like when they don't invest in their products, they're not going to do anything with the business. So there's some things that have to happen that trigger the psychological responses that move them further into the engagement and enrollment process. So getting them in is not enough. It's getting them on board of a vision, which is first going to be induced by their own desire. What do they want? And then you're going to help them see how what they want actually dovetails into what you guys are actually creating. So now you're on the same team. We're on the same page. It's not like an island. They're not isolated on their own, doing Niken for themselves. They are now part of a bigger movement, and they're going to get what they want because it's perfectly aligned with what it is that we're creating. And when they get that sense, strong sense of that, then they want to stay part of it. And so one of the keys, I think, one of the keys to team building is those regular meetings. The content has to always be RTM. It has to always be reflective of the objective. That has to be communicated regularly and applauded when people are moving forward. I'll give you an example. This is a simple example of one member of my team who seems to be making most of the things happen in Niken, and that's Leo. He has his little diamond. Have you seen him hold it up in any of the calls? He has a crystal diamond, like the one I have in my credenza in the other room, the other office. He has a crystal diamond. And he holds it up on his calls, and he shows everybody every time he gets a chance. This is diamond. I'm diamond. I'm building diamond. He's constantly projecting that. He's making it very clear and very well known. This is the game he's playing. And in order for him to achieve the diamond rank, he can't do it alone because it's impossible. So he needs to bring some people with him. In other words, he needs to help some people become successful in their own right. And so when people see that and hear that, what they get a sense of is his commitment to them. He has a commitment to them because he can't achieve this objective without them achieving theirs. And so that creates the thing, that the bond that ties. There's a drawing that I used to use. I still do in my PowerPoint. It's the Star of David. So one arrow points up and one arrow points down. Do you see that? It's the intersection of two arrows, one pointing up, one pointing down, up line, down line. And the intersection, that spot in the middle, that's what brings them together. What brings them together is a common objective. It's a common objective. That's what brings these two together. If that common objective doesn't exist, the relationship falls apart. So what's a common objective in a business context? A goal, an achievement, a result that's measurable, tangible, that we can work towards. We can adjust our strategy and so forth. But as long as we know that they're on the same team and we're playing the same game and we're going for a victory, we're in it. So team building is about that. It's about what's common among the people on the team. What's the victory that we're going after, that everybody wins? No, there's, when I went on stage as a Nikan Royal Diamond here in Toronto, it was actually in Toronto that I was awarded the acknowledgement in front of the founder of Nikan, Isam Masura, and my parents, my dad, my family. I was in tears. My speech is actually recorded. I think I have a copy of it somewhere around here, but it was hard for me to actually speak without being so emotional, because the entire audience, most of the people in that audience were Canadians. Most of them were from my downline, and they were so thrilled for me. I could feel it. I could feel the excitement, the energy. They were like, for me, I'm the one getting the award, getting the recognition, but they were so happy for me, because they all played a role in it. And I knew that, and I sensed that. And so I always started to say, the only credit I can take is for having given birth. I can't take credit for the individual decisions that are being made every single day by independent Nikan consultants in my team. They're the ones doing that. I get the recognition, I get the rewards, but I can't take the credit, because all I can take credit for is having given birth to this and fanning the flames. But every single person, every single day they were making decisions for this, that was their decision, not mine. So I understood that what kept this thing going was this common vision, this sense of work that we're doing, this sense of accomplishment, achievement, and it is embodied in somebody. Somebody has to lead the pack. It's always going to be the case. People like to follow before they lead. So somebody has to take the lead and set that course and call it out and say, that's where we're going. That's where I'm going. I'm already going there. Who wants to come? Because getting there is not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. It's never about whether it's easy. It's always only whether it's worth it. And it's going to be definitely worth it. Not only getting there, but the route getting there is going to be worth it. We're going to have all kinds of great fun and times and so forth. And so it's being able to communicate that and convey that in so many ways, repeatedly. There has to be repetition in this, because people are distracted. In this conversation, you probably looked at your phone 5 times, 10 times in a minute. It's right now we're living in times where distractions have taken over people's consciousness. Their willpower is constantly being undermined by distraction. So building a team, you've got to have a vision that makes all of those distractions look meaningless, and keep reminding people of who they are. Bob Proctor was the master of reminding people who they are. Stop playing small. He used to say, if you're not standing at the edge, you're taking up too much space. He would always remind people of stop playing small, be large, play to win. You're a winner. And when you do that, and you're the one doing it loudly and clearly, and you have a game to play with them, and you're playing with them, you're on the same team, you're making the same passes, the same mistakes, the same plays, they get a sense of we're in it together. And they'll fight for it. They'll fight for it because it's worth it. As long as what it is that you're creating is clear, it's worth it. So I think it's important to get a picture of that. What does it look like? If Sovereign Life team, which is comprised right now of the 3 people on the call, plus maybe a handful others that are not on the call right now, if that team succeeds as a team, what does it look like? What does it mean for not just you, but for the lives of the people who will have been affected because of the decision that you guys made to win? and to play together, because only that way can you win. How many thousands of lives will be better? Even if it just means they're drinking fresh, clean water for a change at a penny of the price, especially when prices are going through the roof and everybody's going to look for ways to save money. You might say, well, how are we going to sell these products in that environment? You're not. People don't buy products when the economy is going down. They buy opportunity. You're going to sell the opportunity. How do you want to pay for this? I'll show you how you can pay for it. So getting back to the team building part. So I've had opportunities to build teams, not just my own, but also probably one of the most remarkable teams in the history of network marketing, called Team Diamond. And that was when we Diamonds, 5 of us, recognized that we were spending a lot of time on airplanes, crisscrossing and passing each other in the air. As one would leave Toronto, another would come in, and then so forth and so forth. And we were like, we got to get better at this, more efficient. Why don't we just park ourselves somewhere and get everybody to come to us? And we'll do this once every 3 months. That little idea became an idea that every 3 months we had a huge event, $1 million budget, anywhere from 10 to 15,000 people showing up. And it became quite a thing. It actually became quite daunting and overwhelming because it was such a big production. But the point is, what did we have in common? A vision. What did we see? Team Diamond. We named it. We see diamonds. We make diamonds. While everybody was busy creating distributors or creating silvers, we were thinking building diamonds. And so when we were looking at people and talking with people, our mind and our thoughts and our energy was always, you diamond, let's hear it, you diamond. And we created a platform for those people so that when they saw it, it was like, holy crap, I want to be one of those guys. I want to be on that stage as a diamond. I'm coming back on that stage as a diamond on November, blah, 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 blah. So people started to turn their attention to what we were projecting. So create diamonds. I mean, what does a Nikan diamond look like? What is the lifestyle of a Nikan diamond? What does it feel like? If that's the game you're in, I know this is not easy for you to take at the beginning, because you're thinking, geez, I haven't even got the silver yet, or I haven't even got the gold, or I haven't got the platinum. How can we be thinking making diamonds? Well, what does this book talk about? Does it talk about work your way up, or does it say start with the end in mind and work your way down? So the vision of your team is the first thing you start with. What's this team look like? That's why I keep asking people, Nikan's going to do 10 million new wellness members. How many of those 10 million are you going to take responsibility for? Are going to come in through your network because you had a vision to attract them? You know, I can tell you, in my history of Nikan, I've been where there's been major egos. I mean, people with huge egos. You know, making $1 million a month was the only thing worth doing. Otherwise, why are we doing this? Egos. Now, that's not a bad thing. Those guys were important to building a huge team, because it's those huge egos with the big vision that are able to attract people who want to play in the major leagues. Now, if you could temper that with the female energy, now you got something. Now you could really empower multitudes of people of all kinds of persuasions, because it's not so male ego driven. But now you got a real balance. But the goals are the same. The goalposts are still there. The game is the same. We're trying to build a network. Big vision is what it takes. You have to see the team in your mind. And then you put the puzzle pieces in place to make them come together and feel like they're part of something. So that regular event, that regular communicating, I don't know if I'm getting the getting what you're wanting to hear, but I know that it started with the idea, and then the pieces fell into place as we went. We started to build a bigger game, play a bigger game. As the numbers started to increase, we had to increase the venues. We went from hotel to convention centers. We went from convention centers to we did the Scotia Theater. Scotiabank was one of our venues. So it grows, but the vision was already there. But as it starts to grow, you start to grow your audience, your venues, and so forth. Imagine yourself, Moya, everything that you're going through right now in life, every little thing that you're going, every single struggle that you're going through, every hardship, but the fact that you're still here in the game is going to assure your victory, because your story is going to be a story that changes millions of lives, because it's easier to relate to your story than it is to mine. People, oh, he's already successful in that. No. People will be able to relate to the story of somebody who started with nothing and built this thing from the ground up because they had nothing but their will and their vision to do it. And then they fell into the pieces in the circumstances and the attract and so forth. That's a story that can change many, many lives. And the products are great, but at the end of the day, that's not what this is about. This is about people. This is about growing a platform for people to truly become self-actualized, and for the leaders of that movement to create a flow so that we can efficiently get more and more people through those turnstiles and up and on their way to self-actualization. So the basics, I don't know if I've covered them for you, but I covered them in terms of concepts. But then what would it look like? Again, what does it look like? What does your team look like now? Right now, at least you're meeting. What can you do to those meetings where those meetings become now more reflective of the team you're building? The vision that you see for that team, the winners winning, the experiences that they will have experienced. Like, that's what we're talking about here. And if you build it, they will come. That movie, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie, Field of Dreams. You should watch that movie. Write it down. It's an old film, a Kevin Costner film. It's called Field of Dreams. And it's a hell of a film because it's very metaphorical. And, this guy runs a farm, but he has these visions. He keeps having these visions, and he decides that he's just going to follow through on those visions. And he builds himself a baseball stadium on his farm. And there's a reason. It's a pretty amazing film, but it's so metaphorical for what we're talking about here. And if you look at anybody who's anybody, Steve Jobs started Apple in his garage. Well, yeah, he started in a garage. Okay. So it doesn't matter where you start. It's only matters where you're going. So put all that together and start to be an expression of the team you want to see yourself surrounded by and supported by. And when it comes to setting goals and objectives, don't be shy about that, because it's part of the process. Both oars have got to be in the water. Otherwise, we can't tell if we're moving. We need to be moving forward. We need to be measuring results. We need to be patting people on the back for their successes. And that means we need to start setting goals and objectives. Think about it. Elena, Sophia, you guys went gold in your first 6 months. Look at all the fanfare that caused, all the reactions. All of Nikan heard about this. You guys made quite a ripple effect, quite a splash. How about having some of that go on for your team? That's when it becomes really rewarding, is when it's their turn and they're getting their diamond pin and they're getting their just desserts and the rewards and so forth. That's when you can sort of sit back and say, that's really cool. Because then it's not on you. It's not about you having to do it. It's just simply basking in the light of somebody on your team getting it all, getting the recognition. So yeah. Does that help with this? Or do you have anything specific you'd like to ask about it?
Like if you were me wanting to help Moya, what would you do?
Well, there's only one thing that can help Moya in terms of the business, and that is what it takes to get a paycheck, volume. And what does it take to generate volume? People. What does it take to generate people? Exposure. So help Moya get more exposure and get better at her messaging. Because you know what to do with somebody, right? You know exactly what to do. If somebody says, "Hey, I'm interested," you guys know what to do, right? You know how to follow up and how to inform them and how to present NECAN and so forth, how to enroll them, how to recommend the products and whatnot. You got all that. That's not your problem. There's just not enough people being exposed in something that is exciting enough to distract them to this, given them, the myriad of distractions that they have on their phone. I mean, it's insane. So think about it. What's it going to take for people to stop on this thread and get a sense about something that they're not getting anywhere else? Think about that for a second. What's it going to take for people to stop on this thread and get a sense about this that they're not getting anywhere else? That speaks to what it is that you're creating, yet at the same time deals with where they're at in life. You don't want it to be two-dimensional, but you want it to be transparent. And just know this: every time you cast a net in the ocean, there's fish in the ocean. They're not always where you're casting your net, but they're in the ocean. If you don't keep casting and you don't keep moving your boat around, you're never going to catch them. That's why they have radar. They have radar to say, "Oh, they're over there." So they move the boat over there and then they drop the net. So you got to be that. You're fishermen of men and women. That's what you are. You're fishermen of people. So keep moving the boat, keep casting the net, because the fish are in the ocean. And more and more and more of them are starting to look at what it is that we're doing, not knowing that we're doing it, but they're looking for what it is that we're talking about. So just more of it, more of it, more of it, more of it. And that's how you get this thing going. So, and by the way, whenever you guys do something together, it is always more powerful than when you do it by yourself. Always. When people see two, where two or more are gathered in my name, there too will I be. So when there's two or more of you, there's a dynamic that happens psychologically, mentally, emotionally that doesn't happen when it's one person. So you'll get the second look just because there's more than one of you on the page. So just find more ways to get more exposure as you guys. Maybe you guys should do what I used to do, have a leadership meeting. Like I used to do a coffee meeting at Yatz's Deli at Dufferin, and find something on a subway line or whatever, and just make it your thing. And then it's going to become a thing. It's going to be like heaven and earth can't stop you from being at your breakfast meeting, because that's like, you're going to have a death in the family. I'm sorry, I'll have to come after the breakfast meeting. It's like, because it's going to become the thing that galvanizes the team. There's got to be something that galvanizes this team that says, we don't miss that. And in-person meetings, as much as you can get away with them, do it. Maybe it's here at the house. I don't know. A breakfast once a month. Never miss the breakfast once a month. That's where I don't care if one person shows up. There's a breakfast every month. This is it. And then you do RTM. You do every opportunity you can to showcase and feature and spend time with and take pictures and commune. And, if can you imagine if Christianity didn't have church every Sunday? Do you think there would be any churches in the world if they didn't start that thing where they met on a regular basis? Think about it. What brings communities together? What brings teams together? Whether it's Christianity or whatever, it's Monday Night Football. It's, Saturday night hockey night in Canada. It's that thing that happens religiously because that's what we do. So that's probably why you kept hearing me harp on the calendar, girls. How I kept harping on the calendar, because I knew, I've always known, that's the key to the rhythm of the business, and it's the key to the building a momentum, because it's like a swing. Every time you hit that swing, just a little bit more push, a little bit higher, it goes. But you got to hit it in rhythm, and it just keeps going higher and higher. So that's the rhythm of the business. The height represents the momentum, represents the growth, but you got to keep pushing it. If you stop and you miss, or if you misfire, you hit it when it's coming down at the wrong time, you set it off course, you interfere with the momentum. So be sensitive to that, because that's how human nature is. We're very, very sensitive to that. The rhythm of the business, the rhythm of life. And if you can create a rhythm, establish a rhythm, that's the most important thing you could possibly do to build a team. Establish the team's rhythm.
Yeah, I think we've just had a hard time with that because we don't really have a clear pathway for somebody to go through when they join. So we meet twice a week, every week, and we have never stopped doing that. Our meetings may have changed throughout the year, but like we've always been consistent with meeting every single week.
Maybe you could add a goal.
Yeah, it's
Maybe the
just
goal is come to the meeting and bring a guest. Because if everybody committed to that, then meetings would start to take form. They would start to grow. So it's not just about meeting. There's got to be a reason to meet that's beyond the group of people who are assembling.
Yeah, I feel like we were doing that with our Life on Purpose calls, but what started happening was no new people were coming. And
So then you adjust your strategy. Maybe the Life on Purpose presentation was too long, maybe it was too winded, whatever. You just start messing around with that, because if that was what the objective was, then you don't change the objective, you change the strategy. It's like there is a combination to the lock. Don't abandon the lock. Just keep trying different combinations. Eventually, you're going to get the one that opens the lock. So, that could be resumed, because I think it's an amazing call. I think it was amazing content, although it could be curbed shorter. But I think that was probably one of the best presentations of Nikan I'd seen in a long time. And I think that if you had more stuff being pushed out in the general sense of, hey, and would like to invite you to our meeting tonight, instead of doing a women's group session back here, it could have been, it's just, what are you inviting people to? Make it sexy, make it shiny, make it worthwhile. Figure out what it is that you guys can say that's going to get people's attention, and say it together, because you are more powerful together. And then when you do it with regularity, one of the things I think I heard I can't remember who said it, but it was like, oh, I'm kind of getting bored because it's the same information.
Yeah, we
Do you
were
know how
all
many
bored.
do you know how many wellness previews I've done? Can you imagine how many wellness previews I've done, which is essentially the same story over and over and over again? I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for the person in the audience who's never heard it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's powerful, but I also think that is part of the issue in and of itself for motivation, because we need to be able to keep things new and exciting and constantly evolving as much as we also do what works, because that doesn't excite me. That doesn't get me wanting to invite people to come in if I know that this is what it's going to look like for the next few years of my life, just the consistent rhythm. I think the rhythm is important, but I also want to be able to integrate novelty into it. I don't know
You're in
how.
a phase of the business where you're not out of that phase. You guys jumped phases. Like, honestly, 6 months not being here physically mattered. I hope you know that. And whether you believe it or not, I know that. I knew that beforehand, which is why you heard from me. So there's got to be a point where the airplane gets off the ground before you throttle back. Throttle back is a psychological, emotional thing as well as a physical. So you got to get the plane off the ground before you throttle back. If you're still on the runway picking up speed, you don't throttle back. So there is a time and a place for the wellness preview. And it's not the objective for you to do a wellness preview for the rest of your life. I don't. I'm a Royal Diamond. So somebody took over that role. In fact, thousands have taken over that role. But if I go into a new city and I'm starting up a new person, who's doing the preview? Me. So I take my Royal Diamond hat off. I put my silver hat on. And now I act like a silver for that new consultant because they need an upline silver doing what an upline silver does to help them kickstart their business until they become a silver. Then I take my silver hat off. I put my gold hat on. They put the silver hat on, and now they start doing what a silver does for their team, which is host launch meetings and wellness previews. And I'm doing the gold thing, which is the once a month. And then when they get to gold, I take the gold hat off, I put the platinum hat on. They took the gold hat on and they start doing things that a gold does, which is organizing their silvers and their monthly gatherings. So there's roles and responsibilities that you move through depending on what situation I'm in, what stage is the business at in that specific location. So when you're just getting started, you've got to move through those roles, but it's not just moving through them, it's also handing them off. That's the key. Duplication is, am I handing it off to somebody who's taking it on? And if they're not taking it on, I haven't yet got that right person, so I got to keep the hat on myself until I find that person who will take the hat and put it on themselves. Now I've got a leader. Now they've got their rhythm going, and off we go. And so it starts to spread. And so there's roles and this is called roles and responsibilities. It's all part of the rhythm of the business. And the roles and responsibilities are something that you first move through, and then which is why it has to be duplicatable, Ellen. That's why the presentation has to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's changing all the time, then you can't teach it. It can't be duplicated. McDonald's doesn't keep changing their theme just because they're opening up another restaurant. They need everybody to run the restaurant the way they need to run the restaurant. But every now and then they'll do a thing across the board. They'll come up with a new presentation for everybody, and everybody will learn the new presentation. They'll come up with a new product for everybody, and everybody will learn how to deliver that product. So every now and then we work on the business throughout, making those modifications like we are doing right now. But in the business has to be duplication so that you can pass those roles and responsibilities on, so that you can either expand somewhere else or move on to the next part. A fully functional Royal Diamond, do you know what I do? You see it. The role that I play most of the time right now is a Royal Diamond. What does a Royal Diamond do? Tell her. Moya's here on the call. People watching recording. You see what I do. You guys are in my house. What do I do?
Chill.
What do I do? Huh?
Check in on group chats, post things in the group chats, and do your once a week call, and do ABCs for us every now and then.
Yeah, so not a lot, right? Just keep my eye on the ball and plug myself in when I'm asked or whatever. So unless I'm working with a new group where that I need to now take the Royal Diamond hat off and okay, I will do the Thursday night call every week. This is the only call I do every week besides my own.
Getting attacked.
Oh my god.
Put some alcohol in it.
Oh my
So
god.
so we never got into the training on that. If you want, I can show you. It's a presentation. I've taught everybody in NECAN in the highest levels because it's called the rhythm of the business. I'm known for it. And what it teaches is there's roles and responsibilities, and they're associated with events, and they're timed: the daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, annual, and triennial. So who does those events? Who's responsible for putting on an event like that? You can't expect a new person to be putting on a major event. So they don't. That means they don't have the role and responsibility of that, but somebody does, because that event is necessary for that new person to experience what that new person needs to experience in order for that new person to want to go beyond being new. So there are roles and responsibilities, just like in every system, in every business, that affect the overall business rhythm. And NECAN right now is taking on a role with the Seikokai. Those were monthly events hosted by Golds. NECAN is now playing the role of the host on a monthly basis for the sake of across the board, because we now have things like Zoom that make it possible for us to be present in multiple places. But it doesn't replace a live event. Nothing does. A live event is always going to trump a Zoom event. So where there is an opportunity to do a live event, do a live event. And if you want to bring in NECAN in that live event, you can do that too. Like I did in my previous monthly events, we would have NECAN do content at a certain segment of that event, just to make the event more worldly, because now you're beaming in, the country from, whatever. The point is, you're not going to always be doing the same thing, Elena, for the same reason. The most fun I have as a Royal Diamond is being invited to speak at large gatherings, especially live gatherings, because I love being on stage and I love channeling the information that I channel, which is usually very inspiring and very motivating, while at the same time I give people some good coaching in terms of the business. That's what I love to do. But nobody would want to listen to me if I wasn't a Royal Diamond. So build a Royal Diamond business and everybody's going to want to listen to you. And by that time, you'll have pretty damn good stories to say and great things to teach, because you will have experienced so much of that evolution. Enough of that. So it never was meant to be easy. It's meant to be worth it. And imagine if you interview the Royal Diamonds, they'll tell you that it's worth it. If you interview the Silvers, not so sure. But if you interview the diamonds and Royal Diamonds, they'll tell you, yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Question. Not pertaining to our topic, but just like the Japan goal. I vaguely remember reading that you had to be silver by a certain time. Is that?
I think by the time you do it, you have to be silver. Or no, when you hit silver from that point forward, they start counting your volume for the contest. By the way, I checked the numbers. You know what? It's not out of reach at all. I was surprised. pleasantly surprised, but I guess it's because of the summer. But let's see, the highest was, give me a second, I'll find it. What is it? What I'll tell you what that it means in the interpretation of that. Here it is. Okay. So this was published yesterday or today? Today. So number 40, that means that in this second version of the contest, not Team Kaizen version, but not the annual, but the one they're running for the last 6 months. The number 40 spot, that means the 40th person so far who's in the running has 6,400 points, basically a silver volume
Like this month?
in total.
Mm.
This is cumulative for 6 months. So there's
So
six.
this competition, I don't understand how this works.
Wait, and their top spot is 37,000. So that means the person with the most volume over this contest period, which is July, August, right? Is it June, July, August? I think it's July, August, starting July, right?
Yeah, it started July.
So over the last 2 months, the person that is in the number one spot to go has 37,000 in volume. The one that's in the 40th spot has 6,400 points in volume. It's not a huge amount of
So
volume.
they're not taking only people who do 30,000 points in 6 months? They're just taking the people who do the top volume?
No, you have to do the volume, but they're only taking the top 40 who do the volume.
Yeah, but okay.
So
basically-
just to give you an idea of where the volume's at in terms of the top 40,
Mhm.
6,400. So if you're above 64, let's say you do some big numbers in the next month, and those big numbers are more than 6,400 points, let's say they're 8,000 points, you will probably end up in the top 40 for the contest.
Okay, so
I
you
see. But you
So-
still have to do the 30,000.
Yeah, but my concern was this. This is what I said to Ruben when he said this is what they're going to do, and I said, okay, here's my 2 cents worth. If people get too far ahead, if some of the contenders get too far ahead, then somebody joining today is going to say, well, what's the point? There's no way I'm going to catch up to those people.
Mm.
But when I'm looking at the numbers, I'm saying you can catch up to these people. They're not so far ahead of the pack right now that it's not possible for somebody joining today and completely catching up to these people. Somebody running for gold, for instance, is already going to contend. So yeah, so in terms of what I would be teaching today, somebody starting the business with me today, they would be qualifying because these guys are not far enough ahead that somebody starting today wouldn't be able to catch up to them. So that's encouraging because that means it's still on. It's still on for anybody. Anybody right now can still play this game and catch up. If the number 40 spot was up at about 20 or 30,000 points already, I'd say pretty good chance you're not going to catch the top 40. But the
You
fact that
just
they're
have
only
to
at
make it in the
6,000,
top 40.
you have to hit the volume and be in the top 40. Top 40 meaning, let's say all 40 of these people hit the volume, 30,000. Let's say 60 people hit 30,000. It's the top 40 that hit the volume that go.
I
So-
see.
And so what I'm looking at is the numbers, and I'm saying this is totally still in the running. Anybody can do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
If say if it was 60 people who got the
30,000?
30,000, would they just go by the top, whoever was the first 40 to get it, or they would just
Not the first to get it, the highest volumes.
okay.
So starting with number 1, which in this case is 37,000 points, and going backwards until you hit the 40th person, whatever that volume is, above 30.
Get higher than 37.
So no, 37 is the top spot right now.
Yeah.
So
It was higher than 64.
they're not getting that far ahead is what I'm saying. Whoever shot out of the pack, the first month they had like 17 or 18,000 or something like that. They shot up pretty fast. So, and I'm thinking, oh boy, that's going to be hard for, in month number 3, who's going to be able to catch these guys? But I'm looking at the numbers and I'm saying, right now, anybody can catch these guys. Because if really the difference between you going to Japan and not going to Japan is 6,400 points, I'm guessing you're going to figure out how to get 6,400 points lickety split.
Yeah. I just want to know, 'cause I thought there was a cutoff that you needed to make silver before. Because
You
then
have to hit silver before they start counting
yeah,
the
but I thought there
volume.
was a cutoff to hit silver and before you could for the
No, so you have to get silver, and then starting at that point forward, they're counting your volume for the contest.
but nothing I make before silver will be counted towards.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Yes. I thought I was out of it.
So no, it's good because, I mean, honestly, the problem with the past is it taints the future only because it taints your mind.
Yeah.
Like you think in your head, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example why this is not true. So my business was, I was a gold. No, wait, I was a platinum. I was a platinum. And my business was doing okay, but it wasn't growing in leaps and bounds. We had our surge, and then it started flatlined. And I could say, for all intents and purposes, it was flat. And you don't want to be growing. You don't want your business to be flat. There needs to be growth. So that was the case. Then, out of nowhere, I get a phone call. I'm in my bedroom where I lived at my dad's house, and I get a phone call from this guy who sounds like a radio broadcaster. He says, "Is this Mike? You don't know me. My name is Marty Jeffrey. Blah 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 blah." And the next thing I know, holy crap, this guy sounds like the real deal. So I get off the phone with Marty and I call my sponsor at that time, and I said, "Listen, I got a whale here. I think this guy's legit." He called Nika and asked him to buy the company, and they sent him to me. So I got to thank Nancy for the rest of my life. Nancy Cahey, she's the one who sent Marty to me. But then, was it Nancy or was it God? At the end of the day, there's only one source. So this was God saying, "Thanks for all the stuff you've done, what you've been doing for everybody. I have something for you." Anyway, this guy joins, and in his first month, are you ready for this? Does 219,008 points volume. 219,008 points volume, month one. Now you might say, how is that humanly possible? Well, he had me as a sponsor, and we set a goal for 200,000 in volume. And you're going to say to me, how can you imagine doing 200,000 points in volume? Well, you're talking to me, a guy who's done 125,000 my first month, a guy who's helped launch countries, who's done more in those countries. So I had a belief system and an expectation associated with me and my success in the past. So when I got the right guy on the other end of the fish, on the end of the line, I knew that maybe this was a shot for me to break those records. And because he had not enough information, not enough experience, but believed in me, he just went along with it. And because he had a healthy ego himself in terms of his own successes in life, he didn't question it. So he just did what he knew I told him he needed to do, what I told him I expected we would do. And so he just did it. He didn't doubt it. He did it. Most people just doubt it and don't do it. He just did it without doubting it. So that was that. And now everybody looks at that and says, how's that possible? This is why I'm telling you, there is an answer to that question. And the answer doesn't change. You have to first imagine it as possible. So winning this trip to Japan, whatever, if the guy can do 200,000 in a month, can we do 20 in a month? Can we do 2 in a month? I mean, how much do we have to lower our expectations to get to our beliefs where we think it's possible? Maybe what we should be doing is not doing that. Maybe we shouldn't be lowering our expectations. Maybe we should be raising our expectations and working on our beliefs.
True.
Okay, I think we should wrap up.
Yep, wrap up.
Thank you.
All right,
Peace out, everybody.
bye
Have
guys.
a great week.
Bye.
Bring your book downstairs.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.